that for me, I'd be shocked if he's not the first overall pick come June 20th. Just his explosiveness. I mean, he's going to be the most explosive athlete in the NBA from day one. And this guy is so much more than just an athlete to me. I don't think we've seen his full package in terms of his ability to handle the ball, his ability to play make. He has an excellent basketball IQ. So again, I'd be really surprised if he's not the first overall pick come June.
I mean, it was so much fun. The hype was real for Zion Williamson, and I think also the scouting report was real.
As I end this chapter and begin the next with the support of my God and my family, in the fall of 2018, I will continue my basketball journey as
I want you to imagine something. You're a 16-year-old high school basketball player, you just learned how to drive, you're in your junior year, and you've been playing well. And people have begun to notice this, and you started to garner a lot of attention. And then one day, you open your Instagram, and you see that one of the most popular music artists of the last 2 or 3 decades is wearing your jersey. This is the story of Zion Williamson, someone who became one of the most popular athletes in the world at 16. A guy whose combination of freakish size and freakish athleticism seems like it was made up in a fictional story. A guy who's the definition of a creative player or made in a lab. This is the story of someone who dominated every single level of the game he ever played at. And in a way, this is the story of someone with the perfect story. Our story starts on July 6th of 2000, the day that real estate developer Stan Kroenke announced the acquisition of the Denver Nuggets, but more importantly in the context of this documentary, the day that Zion Williamson was born. His dad, Lateef Williamson, a former defensive lineman who was an All-American in high school. His mom, Sharonda Sampson, a sprinter at Livingston who would end up becoming a health and gym teacher. So this might explain Zion's freakish athleticism. But growing up, Zion was like most kids. Played a lot of sports, football, soccer, and basketball. So maybe 3, and not a lot. By the time he was 5 though, his dream was to play in college basketball. By the time he was 9, he was waking up at 5 a.m. every day to train. He would play an AAU circuit facing competition that was much older than him. By the time he got to middle school, he was a point guard averaging 20 points per game. But he wasn't the freak athlete that we all know now. He was only 5'9" in the 8th grade. And entering his freshman year at Spartanburg Day School, he was still only 6'3". Believe it or not, around his freshman year was actually when he started to dunk. He would play on the South Carolina Hornets AAU team alongside a kid named Ja Morant. Why did I mention Ja Morant and this random kid he was an AAU teammate with? Oh, I don't know. But he would show out in his freshman season as well. 24.4 points per game, 9.4 rebounds per game, 3.3 steals per game, and 3 blocks per game. All-state and all-region honors in an SCISA's championship appearance. I know I struggled to say that, but I got it out, don't worry. And by the time he was a sophomore, he was now 6'6". He averaged 28 points per game, 10.4 rebounds per game, and 3.9 blocks per game. He led Spartanburg Day School to its first region title. And it was around this time he was starting to get national recognition. That summer, he was a part of the NBPA Top 100 camp, where all the best players in the country participate, and he led that event in scoring. He would later win the Elite 24 dunk contest, and that led us into his junior year. Zion Williamson's junior year of high school is really where this all begins. He was on the Naismith Prep Player of the Year awards. He was gaining popularity as his highlights began to surface around companies like Balls, Life, and Slam. He was drawing praise from, at the time, the reigning unanimous MVP in Stephen Curry. And he had some wild games, including two that really stood out. 50 points and 16 rebounds, as well as 53 points on 25 for 28 shooting. And again, those are just two that stand out among a plethora of insane games. His popularity was even reaching national heights as Drake started wearing his jersey. It was getting that big. He was averaging 36.8 points per game, 13 rebounds a game, 3 steals a game, and 2.5 blocks per game. He helped Spartanburg Day to another region title, and he set the record for most 30-plus point games in a season in South Carolina history with 27. He was named Max Preps Junior of the Year, and that summer he gained even more popularity on the AAU circuit, where he played against a highly touted scoring prospect by the name of Romeo Langford. And of course, we cannot forget about the famous AAU game against LaMelo Ball. Two of the most popular high school athletes in the world going head to head. The crowd for this game was so massive that they almost canceled the event. In fact, LeBron James had plans to go watch this game in person, but he didn't even get out of his car because he wanted to avoid the frenzy. It was that bad. Damian Lillard, Don Maker, Jamal Murray, and Andrew Wiggins were among players that showed up to this event. Zion and his AAU team SC Supreme would win that game, and overall Zion would win Adidas Nations Camp MVP, averaging 22.5 points a game and 7.2 rebounds a game. His senior season was more of the same, big time numbers, another regional title, a big time Hoopball Classic game against Chino Hills, which I'm guessing they scheduled under the assumption that LaMelo Ball would still be there, but he wasn't. However, that game would not disappoint as he would go up against another touted player in Onyeka Okongwu who was still on Chino Hills. His final high school game was on ESPN. He was South Carolina Mr. Basketball. Of course, he was a McDonald's All-American. He was named to the Jordan Brand Classic and Nike Hoop Summit. However, he would only play in the McDonald's game because he injured himself. But now I do want to talk about something, and that's what the critics had to say about Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson is arguably the biggest name of the mixtape era. His highlights have been shown all across companies like Balls, Life, and Slam. He became a cultural icon in a way. However, despite all of this popularity, he wasn't viewed as a generational talent or even the best in his recruiting class. ESPN ranked him 2nd, 24/7 Sports ranked him 7th, and Rivals ranked him 5th. People believed he was just another one of those high school mixtape guys, like 7th Words, or Quay Parker, or Kyrie Walker. People thought he was just another run, jump, and dunk athlete. And a lot of this had to do with the fact that Zion didn't play great which, to be fair, he wasn't playing the greatest competition, to say the least, at Spartanburg Day. However, that argument, in reality, is really just stupid, because he scored 36 points against a team that had a future top 10 pick in Onyeka Okongwu, and Onyeka Okongwu is one of the best defensive big prospects of the last 10 years. He also dominated all the circuits and camps where the best players in the country participated, so it was clear that Zion was a dominant player, and the idea that he couldn't do what he was doing against better competition when he clearly showed he was able to do that was always ridiculous. And I think a lot of the reasons why people would say this is because people didn't like how popular he is, and solely based off how popular he is.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
When it comes to Zion's recruiting, it was an absolute frenzy. 20 schools wanted his service, but in the end it came down to 6 schools. And even when it went down to 6 schools, everyone knows that only one school was going to get him. The schools: Clemson, South Carolina, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas. Many believed he was either going to go to Clemson or South Carolina because, This was somebody that was relatively a hometown kid. He was somebody that stayed local. He didn't go to prep schools, even though he probably could have. And, many thought that he would go to Clemson or South Carolina. Many believe in Clemson. However, he would suck everyone and choose to play for the Duke Blue Devils. And with guys like RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, more on them later, also committing to Duke University, history would be made, as this was the first time 3 players were top 3 in the ESPN 100 and they all committed to the same school. And if you thought Zion's high school days were legendary, well, you haven't seen anything yet. Zion Williamson was entering his freshman season as one of the most popular athletes in the world, and quite honestly, easily the most popular athlete in college sports. And on top of this, he was playing at one of the most known college schools in the country, and one of the most popular college basketball teams in the world, and it was a perfect storm, or that's how it seemed. Remember I mentioned that Zion wasn't the best player in his high school class coming out according to the rankings? Well, you see, one of those guys that was ranked ahead of him by all 3 major recruiting sites was RJ Barrett, who happened to now be Zion's teammate. RJ entering the season was considered the consensus first overall pick, or at least considered the consensus top player in the class. He was the best player on a storied Montverde Academy team that won the Geico National title. He was the most accomplished male high school basketball recruit since LeBron James. He was drawing comparisons to guys like Jimmy Butler and James Harden. So he was definitely somebody entering the season that was considered better than Zion Williamson. Another teammate who was a bit more debatable about whether you thought he was better than Zion or not entering that year was Cam Reddish. ESPN ranked Zion over Cam Reddish, however 24/7 Sports ranked Cam Reddish over Zion. Cam was somebody that drew comparisons to guys like Tracy McGrady and Paul George due to his scoring ability and his ability as a passer, and according to those who faced him in high school, he was basically Michael Jordan. Just listen to this clip.
Who the hardest person you had to guard?
Be honest, man. Could be when you're freshman.
Cam Reddish. I told you, everybody gonna say.
3 people.
Everybody
when did you play against Cam?
Everybody gonna say Cam Reddish.
DC. I ain't gonna talk about that though. Cause he was trying to cook. I ain't trying to violate with
me. He gave me 44.
When did you?
40. How many he gave you? Shit, he might have gave him more. Never mind.
40.
How many he gave you?
Well, he didn't give me 40. He gave like the person who would guard him, but I'm still on the team, so I'm a part of it. I ain't sorry what you gave her, but it was more than 44. Nah, Cam Reddish is different, bro.
Nah,
He's different. Yeah.
He cold.
So Zion Williamson was entering a college season where he had a teammate that people thought were better than him, and he had a teammate that people were having legit debates about being better than him. So it wasn't as cut and dry as you would think. However, on November 6, 2018 at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana, this is where it all began to change. Duke entered that game as the number 4 team in the country. Zion would play his first official college game, and it would be no easy task. They would go up against Kentucky, who was the number 2 team in the country. Kentucky was no joke. PJ Washington, Tyler Hero, Keldon Johnson, and Emmanuel Quickly were all on that team, and all of those guys would go on to either be lottery picks or first round picks. And well, this is what happened.
Great scene here. 2 historic programs, 2 great freshman classes as well.
Well, you'll see 3 of the top players in the country and 3 of the top 5 presumptive picks in the NBA draft.
The lefty tries to finish and does. Zion Williamson for 3. Not just a dunker, folks.
Duke would win this game in a blowout. Now, oddly enough, this game really didn't tell much, at the time at least, about who the best player in the draft would be. RJ was arguably the best player on the floor that night. He had 33 points, he had 4 rebounds, 6 assists, good shooting splits. At the time, the ACC freshman debut record. That record will be broken by Cole Anthony when he scored 34 points in his debut. However, Zion in his own right was impressive with 28 points and 87.12 shooting percentage. And that was insane efficiency for Zion Williamson in that game. What's even more insane is the fact that he was able to remain highly efficient throughout the season. And despite RJ and Zion having similar scoring numbers, and despite a kid at Murray State by the name of John Morant becoming the first player to average 20 points and 10 assists in a season, it was clear that Zion Williamson was better than both of them as a prospect and was clearly the best player in the draft. And the thing is, John Morant was having one of the best point guard seasons in NCAA history. RJ Barrett was having one of the best freshman seasons in NCAA history. However, those two things were completely overshadowed by the fact that Zion was having one of the best college seasons ever. Through his first 25 games at Duke, Zion was averaging 22.4 points a game and 29.3 minutes a game on a 71.3 true shooting percentage. He wasn't just the talk of college basketball, he was the talk of the sports world in general. A guy that was this big, this fast, and this athletic was dominating one of the best conferences in the country in the top competition in the world. Which leads us to February 20th of 2019. Duke vs UNC. One of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. And to be quite honest with you, I've never seen this much hype around a college game. Tickets for this game were reportedly around $4,000. In fact, over $4,000 was the average ticket price. Apparently the cheapest tickets just to get in the door were over $2,000. People were willing to pay over $10,000 to watch this game. This wasn't just because it was Duke vs UNC. This was because it was Duke vs UNC with Zion Williamson. In fact, it was such a big event that former President Obama showed up to the game. So with all this hype surrounding the game, this is what happened.
Offensive rebounding team, usually that's the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Slipping and injured is Zion Williamson. Back the other way, a layup for Cam Johnson. And 36 seconds into the game, Zion Williamson is down.
He blew through his shoe.
Yeah.
Look at his left shoe. He blew completely through the shoe, and then he started holding his right knee. I mean, his shoe blew apart. I've never seen anything like that. Watch when he plants right here. His foot comes out of his shoe. That's unbelievable.
He broke his shoe with his own foot, but as you say, the injury does not appear to have anything to do with the left foot. He did reach for the back of the right knee. And if we get information, we'll pass it along as he gets some work done. Jack White has come into the game for Williamson.
If anybody else on the bench has a size 15 shoe, they better give it up right now.
This man Zion just destroyed his shoe. What makes it even more interesting is that he was wearing Paul George's signature shoe. Yes, the shoe designed for a man that suffered one of the most gruesome leg injuries in sports history. A shoe designed for the wear and tear of a contact sport like basketball. And Zion just destroyed it. Now, I could go on for days about how amazing Zion was in college. Because, to put it simply, he was incredible. However, I know you don't want me spending days talking about the obvious. The obvious fact that Zion was fucking awesome in college. That's the best way I can put it. He had something for everyone. The stat nerds, the eye test people, hell, even the casuals that just watch highlights. He had something for everyone to know he was amazing. Duke would win the ACC tournament. Zion would be named ACC Tournament MVP, ACC Player of the Year, won a bunch of the alt-team stuff. However, Duke would lose in the Elite Eight of the national tournament to Michigan State, and Zion's college career would come to an end. But he didn't leave without an impact. He would win the Redacted Award for Best Power Forward in College, National Freshman of the Year, and Consensus National Player of the Year, joining KD as the only other freshman to win Consensus National Player of the Year. Anthony Davis did not sweep the National Player of the Year award, so he was not a Consensus National Player of the Year, for those wondering. But with a historic college career over now, let's look at the prospects of the NBA. Zion Williamson was an incredible prospect. He had a 99 grade for me. For some perspective, I started covering the draft around 2016 or 2017. I've seen a lot of great prospects. there's only 3 I've given a 99 grade to, which is the highest grade I'll ever give a prospect. And those 3 prospects are Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic, and Zion Williamson. The size and athleticism combo was already something that was unheard of. He was either too fast or too strong to handle, to be quite honest with you. He was unstoppable on the fast break and going downhill. In fact, him getting downhill at full speed is something I believe probably has been ingrained in a lot of college players' minds, and it gives them nightmares to this day. However, what people didn't talk about enough, in my opinion, and I still think this is something that remains true, is just his intangibles as a player. He has a super high basketball IQ, he has a great feel for the game, and processes things well on both ends of the floor. I feel like the dunks kind of overshadowed that. Zion wasn't a generational basketball talent simply because of his freakish measurables and his athletic ability. It was also because of his skills and intangibles as a player, and I feel like that is what has gotten lost in all of this. Because people saw the dunks and that's all they were shown, they probably think that he wouldn't be a great pro because all he was doing was dunking. But that's because they didn't see the intelligence and feel for the game that he had that made him so damn special. So we have reached the final part of this story, the NBA draft. And if you're wondering why I'm ending it on the NBA draft and not ending it on where he's at in his NBA career, well, A, I just didn't really feel like it, and B, I've already kind of made a video talking about what he's done in the NBA so far and why he's so awesome, so I feel like that would have been a bit repetitive. But let's start with the lottery though, now that we've gotten that out of the way. Think about this. A big name star like Zion Williamson being the consensus top player in the draft, and a big market looking for a star in the New York Knicks. It would be a match made in heaven. And the Knicks had the best chance of landing the first overall pick. However, that's not how things turned out. The team with the 7th best odds in the lottery, the New Orleans Pelicans, would land the first overall pick. And it was kind of fitting, because the Pelicans were looking to trade their franchise player Anthony Davis because he had requested a trade, and all of a sudden they're in position to get a new one on Zion Williamson. Coincidentally, Anthony Davis in his own right was a consensus first overall pick when he was coming out of Kentucky, and also was National Player of the Year, although it wasn't consensus like Zion Williamson. Now, some speculated that Zion would go back to college because the Pelicans were a small market team, and maybe he didn't want to go there. But what these people fail to realize is that Zion isn't like that at all. Think about everything I have mentioned and everything that's happened in this story. Drake wearing his jersey, praise from Stephen Curry, Obama showing up to his game, people willing to drop $10,000 to see him play in person, all the popularity and coverage in the world, but he's still humble, and he still has his small town aura about him. Despite all the cameras around him, he still has the same mindset. He hasn't gone Hollywood or whatever you call it, and that's what makes him so damn interesting. He's an elite talent, a rare athlete, and has all the popularity in the world. Yet, he still doesn't let that change who he is. And while this documentary may be coming to an end, the story of Zion Williamson is just beginning.